Hey everybody, this is Praxis. I'm working in the greenhouse today, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a technique that I use for getting my deck boards to match up perfectly to the contour of the boulders in the greenhouse. Hey everybody, this is Praxis. Some of my favorite building materials are raw cut lumber and stone, boulders in this case, and I love it when you can kind of incorporate the two kind of interacting with each other. Here in my greenhouse I have this boulder retaining wall set up here. There's kind of grass and plants up on the top, and this lower area is going to be a deck. And I want to make it so that the wood is kind of cutting right up against the rock, which is a non-uniform surface. And that can be a little bit challenging, but I want to show you in this video how I go about creating this kind of a curved edge to all of the boards. What I start off with is I just usually take a piece of scrap as kind of a support. This is just an end of one of my boards that I cut up, and I'm just going to slide that up here just as a support for my working area. You can see there's like a big gap right in here, and it's kind of closer in these areas. What I want to do is I want to get the wood to be cut right along there. So I'm going to take this piece of cardboard, and this piece of cardboard was actually used as a stencil for the last one. I'm going to show you how I make those stencils. What I want to do is take some kind of a spacer, and I want to find the deepest area where I want the wood penetrating furthest into. And I'm going to take some kind of a spacer. They could be any different lengths. Because this one kind of kicks in a bit, I'm going to be using this. This is about, I don't know, five inches long. And I'm going to stick it in there in the same direction that's parallel with the direction that the board's going to be going in. Not perpendicular to the wall, but parallel to the direction of the board. And what I'm going to be doing is taking a crayon at the end and using it as a stencil. So I don't want to draw directly onto this piece of wood because it's a lot easier to just work with a piece of cardboard. I'm going to bring this cardboard up so that the edge of it is somewhere about the distance of my spacer. If I had a longer spacer, this would be slid down this way. If I had a shorter spacer, this would be slid up this way. So I've got the spacer about this length, and this is the deepest area. So I'm going to slide this piece of cardboard so it is up against the wood and up against the spacer. And what I'm going to do is hold the crayon down while I trace this contour, and I'll just show you here without the crayon. This is going to move kind of like this. So it's not going to be pivoting or anything like that. Again, this board stays parallel to the direction of the board that we're going to be putting in. So let's start at the deepest area, which is right here. I'm going to slide my paper just up a little bit further, and let's start drawing. And it doesn't have to be beautiful. We're going to kind of play with this afterwards, but I'm just making some marks, and then this wraps all the way up around like that. There we go. So you can see this line corresponds with this line where there's that angle in there, and here's the angle. And we'll keep this coming along this surface here. Of course, this is black, it's a little hard to see the crayon. I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out. Alright, and there we go. So what we've got is this that goes to about a 90-degree angle, comes across here, bumps out, and then goes back. In the same way, this comes down to a 90-degree angle, across here, bumps out, and then goes back. So I'm just going to smooth this up with my crayon here to make it kind of like a nice, beautiful edge, if you want to call it beautiful. Alright, there we go. So this is going to be the end of my board, and I just imagine it's going to taper off there a little bit. And now that we've got this line here, the next step is to cut it out. Now I'm using some metal cutting shears here just because I happen to be kicking around. You could use a knife or regular scissors or whatever you happen to get. Okay, but this is the edge that we want to emulate. So the next step is to apply this to the actual board that is going to go in here. And that board can't fit in here, it's just too big, so we're going to go outside for that. This is the actual board that we're going to be using, and I've chosen which side I want to be the top side versus the bottom side, you know, which one's prettier. And now I got to remind you, when you put this down, make sure you put it the proper orientation. Kind of visualize this board moving into your space. You don't want to accidentally put this upside down. You know, you could still use the board, but you'd have to flip it, and if it was ugly on the other side, you'd be kicking yourself. So this is the proper orientation for it. And I looked around this board, you know, for little rot part, you know, rot sections or whatever. There's a rough sawn piece from a pile that we had out here. Some of the ends are a little bit dry rotted. We're going to move into the middle. It looks pretty good up to here or so. So I think we're going to set it up here. I'm matching up this edge to keep it parallel, and I'm going to just sketch the line in crayon. Right here you could use a carpenter's pencil too, but I had a crayon in my pocket all morning doing some art projects with the boy today, and crayon's still there. Alright, so we've got our line on there. I'm going to be using this saber saw to cut it out, and when I do it, I'm not going to be doing it vertically, straight up and down. I'm going to be giving it a bit of an angle here, and the reason for that is the rocks inside my structure, they're not straight up and down. They kind of slope down, which is very common with stonework, that it kind of slopes down towards the bottom. So whereas this is the top, and the rocks are going to be going in this direction, like this, if we have a straight up and down cut, it's going to make it so the bottom would hit before the top, and we're not going to be able to be as snug on our fitting it to the rocks. So as I cut, I'm going to try to tilt the tool back in that direction. And here we go. There we go. So here's the piece we're getting rid of. We've got a nice edge here. Now the next step is to measure this to make sure that it's going to fit in the floor that we have laid down. This is the area where the fresh board is going to go in. Right over here is where we got that contour. And what I want to do is find out where this contour needs to start, because this board is going to have kind of specialty cuts on both ends of it. So I'm going to measure. I guess the easiest to hook around on this side, this board. Going to measure how long this side of the board needs to be. Match this right up to the end. There's nothing really to hook onto here because they all got kind of a taper. And this edge needs to be 113¼ inches. So what I'm going to do now is head back out, mark off 113¼ inches, and then the next step is to find out what the contour is going to be on this side. This is where the other end of the board is going to terminate. So again, I'm just going to put in this piece of scrap temporarily as a support. We're going to put in our stencil, or our template, and I gave this one just kind of a rough contour of the rock, and we're going to make it perfect this time. I'm going to shove that right up, making sure that it stays nice and parallel. This edge has to stay parallel with the edge of the board, so we can match it up to the other board outside. All right. And because I was able to get this one a lot closer, instead of using this the long way and doing that, which is a little more cumbersome, I'm going to take this and just run it the short way like that. So use a foot to hold down the cardboard, and here we go. Again, keeping the piece of wood parallel to the direction of the board's run. Alright, there we go. There's our contour. Just clean it up a little bit. Make it kind of smooth. And then cut it out. Alright, and now we're going to bring this outside, and this point right here is that 113¼ inches measurement. So this mark right here is 113¼ inches from that other corner. So I'm going to take the cardboard, put it down, and again, make sure that I'm, not doing it backwards or whatever. I remember the board was tapering as it needs to be in there, and I'm looking taper. Check it over in my head before I cut, because it's an awfully nice giant piece of board that I don't want to screw up by cutting this thing the wrong way, and I have done that before. But I know this is correct, and I'm going to draw my little line right there. Okay, that's set. And the next step is to use the saber saw to cut this, and again it's going to be tapering in this direction because the rock is here and it's cutting in this direction, so we want to have it taper in over like that. I'm going to start over on this side, and this is actually going to, there's like good 4, almost 5 feet of board going off that way, and this wood's still pretty heavy from having moisture in it. It hasn't dried off too much, so I'm really going to have to I'm going to have to hold on to it a bit, although it's going to be pretty rigid until I get, almost all the way through. Let's start the cut with that angle. Whew. All right, there you go. Something to be said for sawhorses. It was a little bit chunky here, so I'm just going to polish this up. Whew. A little difficult to one arm these things, for me anyway. Okay, cool. So this is set. It's ready to go in, and I'll find out the bad news if I did anything wrong. All right. And I do want to clean up the edges on both ends, but first I want to just put it in here, make sure it looks good. And not bad. I am not disappointed with that. So the next step is to use this rasp. Looks pretty good. All right, so we're going to take the rasp and we're just going to clean it up. I'm also getting rid of any crayon marks that are left over. Alright, and that is a nice smooth contour that matches right up to the rock. I think that approaching things like this can take a project that would look fairly mundane, kind of ordinary, if we just had like a straight line that was going up to these rocks, or kind of like a step or angles, and turns it into something that has much more artistic flair and has a much more organic kind of feel to it. And I'm really pleased with this result, and at this point the only thing I need to do is continue to all the rest of it. There's still a lot of work to be done, but the results I think are really nice. Please subscribe for new videos all the time, and if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so either through Patreon or PayPal.